The galaxy was immense, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations. Some were small, some were mighty, and some believed themselves unstoppable. Among them, the Galaxian Imperium considered itself the most powerful. Their ships were enormous, their weapons deadly, and their reach unmatched. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, and now, their eyes turned toward Earth, but Earth was different, or so the humans had warned. Messages had reached the High Council of the Imperium from distant observers. Humans spoke through radio waves, encrypted signals, and old transmissions. They warned, "Do not come here. Do not underestimate us. Earth defends itself in ways you cannot imagine." The words were simple, almost naive, but there was a weight behind them. Yet the council laughed. Emperor Zorath, a tall figure shimmering in polished armor, regarded the warnings with disdain. His voice rang cold and sharp. "Pathetic primitives," he said. "They are nothing. Mere insects in the vast galaxy. We shall take their world, and they will crumble before our might." His generals nodded eagerly, their faces shining with pride and ambition. None dared oppose him. Only one council member hesitated. Elder Theros, a veteran of many wars, frowned. "Perhaps we should wait," he suggested carefully. "Observe them more closely. The humans, they may be clever." Zorath's eyes flared with anger. "Clever? They are insignificant. There is no need for caution. Proceed." Theros fell silent, the warning unheeded. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans were watching. They had known this day might come for decades. Leaders, scientists, engineers, and soldiers had worked in secret, preparing for the impossible. Underground hangars housed sleek warships. Satellites in orbit were armed and ready. Energy shields shimmered invisibly around key cities. Humanity had always faced danger. Volcanoes, plagues, wars, and famine, and they had survived. They would survive again. The humans did not fear the Imperium. Fear was not something they allowed to control them. Instead, they channeled it into action. Young pilots trained for years. Engineers built defenses capable of leveling invaders, and leaders studied every possible scenario. They understood one truth. The galaxy would not grant mercy to the weak, but the brave could endure anything. When the first ships of the Imperium reached the edge of the Sol system, the sky darkened. Thousands of colossal vessels, their hulls glinting with deadly energy, stretched across space like a living shadow. The Imperium's voice boomed through the communications channels demanding surrender. They expected humans to panic, to beg, to kneel. But Earth replied with one word. No. It was a small word, but heavy with determination. It carried the history of an entire species that had fought for survival since the dawn of time. In that moment, across the cold silence of space, the Imperium heard something it had never expected. Defiance, Admiral Kale, standing on the command deck of Earth's flagship Resolute, watched the massive fleet with calm eyes. "They think we are weak," he said to his officers. "They think we will crumble under their weapons. They are wrong." His voice was steady, but there was fire in it, a fire that came from generations of humans who had refused to give up, who had survived impossible odds. Across the planet, humans prepared silently. Families gathered in shelters, soldiers took their positions, and scientists monitored the approaching threat. Every heart beat faster, but every hand was steady. The Imperium might have had numbers, firepower, and experience, but humans had something the galaxy often underestimated: resilience, ingenuity, and courage. Zorath, aboard his flagship Eclipse of Stars, remained confident. He could not imagine a planet resisting him. Yet deep in the shadows of space, the humans waited, ready for the moment when Arrogance would meet the impossible. The stage was set. A tiny blue planet against a galactic empire. The warnings had been clear. The Imperium had ignored them. And humanity, small but unyielding, prepared to show the galaxy why Earth should never, ever be underestimated. The first ships of the Galaxian Imperium pierced the edge of the Sol system, moving like dark predators toward a tiny blue world. Their massive hulls glimmered with deadly energy, their weapons pulsing with destructive power. Thousands of warships stretched across space, forming an intimidating wall. Yet from the surface of Earth to the command decks in orbit, humans watched without fear. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, Earth's largest warship, and surveyed the fleet. His hands rested on the console, steady and calm. "They think size and firepower will make us surrender," he said. They are wrong. Fear does not weaken us, it sharpens us. Around him, officers and crew moved with quiet determination. Every signal was monitored, every ship prepared, every defense ready. Humanity had planned for this moment for decades. In orbit, Earth's defense satellites came alive. Invisible energy shields shimmered over the cities below, bending light and heat. Automated weapon systems shifted positions, forming intricate patterns that would tear through enemy formations. Small strike craft, nimble and fast, prepared to dance through the gaps in the enemy lines. Humans had learned to use the planet itself as a weapon, combining ingenuity with daring bravery. The Imperium's first attack came without warning. Beams of energy tore across the skies, vaporizing parts of oceans, forests, and cities. Explosions rocked the surface, lighting the night with fire. From space, the human response was precise and deadly. Countermeasures intercepted the beams, strike craft darted through enemy formations, and the Imperium ships found themselves under a relentless, unexpected assault. Captain Lena Chen piloted her fighter squadron with calm focus. She guided her small craft through the trails of smoke and debris, striking weak points in enemy hulls. "Focus on their engines," she commanded. Her squadron moved like a single organism, unpredictable and fierce. They were outnumbered, yes, but that mattered little. Strategy, courage, and human determination turned the impossible into the achievable. The Imperium officers stared in disbelief. "How?" one whispered. "They are supposed to be defenseless, yet they fight like predators." Their fleet had never encountered an opponent who adapted so quickly, who used intelligence instead of brute force, who refused to bow to fear. On Earth, civilians huddled in shelters, watching the skies and holding their loved ones. They knew millions might die, but their hope was unbroken. Their children drew pictures of heroes in the chaos, and their parents whispered words of courage. Humanity was not just fighting to survive, it was fighting to prove something. That even the smallest world, even the youngest species, could stand against the galaxy's might. Admiral Kale sent orders with calm authority. "Do not waste weapons on ships already crippled. Conserve. Strike where it counts. Make them regret underestimating us." Every human on that bridge felt the weight of history. They were the defenders of Earth, the embodiment of generations who had faced catastrophe and refused to surrender. The Imperium's arrogance began to crack. They expected humans to beg for mercy, to surrender in panic. Instead, they met calculated defiance. Every ship that fell revealed another plan, another tactic, another human stubbornly refusing to die quietly. Zorath, aboard the Eclipse of Stars, watched with growing unease. He had never imagined an opponent who fought not just with weapons, but with the sheer force of will. From the shadows of space, Earth's hidden fleets prepared to strike. Cloaked vessels moved silently, ready to hit where the enemy was weakest. Humans had learned patience, observation, and cunning. They had learned that survival was more than defense. It was strategy, courage, and endurance. And so the first day of war ended not with humanity defeated, but with the Imperium shaken. Their arrogance had met its first obstacle. Across the galaxy, distant observers whispered of Earth's defiance. They had underestimated the humans, and that mistake would echo through the stars. The battle had only begun. Yet already a simple truth emerged. Earth did not fear the Imperium. Humans fought not because they sought conquest, but because they refused to be conquered. And in that defiance lay a fire that no galaxy could extinguish. The war had reached the red planet. Mars, once quiet and lifeless, now trembled under the roar of engines and the glare of weapons. The Galaxian Imperium had chosen it as their forward base, hoping to cut Earth off from vital resources and prepare for an eventual invasion. But the humans would not let them have it, not without a fight. Captain Lena Chen led a squadron of nimble human fighters across the thin Martian atmosphere. Dust swirled around the red surface as their engines burned, maneuvering between craters and ridges. The Imperium's massive dreadnoughts hung in orbit, confident that their size and firepower would overwhelm anything below. But humans had learned to fight differently. They did not rely on brute strength. They relied on cunning, speed, and unpredictability. "Steady," Lena said into her communicator, her voice calm but firm. "They think they own this planet. Let's show them what it means to fight humans." Her squadron responded in perfect unison, diving and weaving through enemy fire. Lasers ripped through Martian canyons and explosions shook the ground, but the humans pressed forward without hesitation. On the surface, Earth engineers had prepared hidden artillery and energy arrays. When Lena's squadron drew the enemy's attention, the ground defenses struck, disabling key Imperium weapons. Smoke and fire rose from the red soil as humans turned the environment into an ally. Crater. Every canyon, every ridge was used to outmaneuver the enemy. The dreadnoughts fired relentlessly, their massive beams slicing the air and sending shrapnel across Mars. Yet Lena's squadron avoided every strike. She led her fighters in a daring maneuver, looping behind the enemy line, striking weak points in engines and power cores. The dreadnoughts, confident in their armor and firepower, did not expect such precision. One by one, Imperial ships erupted in fireballs, scattering the fleet. Admiral Kale watched from orbit, his hands steady on the console. "Excellent," he murmured. "Every strike weakens their arrogance. Keep pressure. Show them humans never yield." On his screen, the Imperium ships faltered, confused and unprepared for the relentless ingenuity of the humans. The battle was not just about firepower, it was about will. Even as the Imperium lost ships, they struck back with fury. Missiles tore through the Martian atmosphere, striking human forces and colonies. Cities of domed settlements trembled under the shockwaves and alarms blared. Civilians and soldiers alike braced for impact. Yet the humans endured. Every loss was mourned, but every setback fueled determination. They had fought through famine, disease, and war on their home planet. They would endure this as well. Zorath, aboard his flagship Eclipse of Stars, watched in disbelief. How do they fight like this?" he barked. "They should have been crushed by now. They are supposed to beg for mercy, not resist with such cunning." His generals, stunned and fearful, could only watch as human ships and ground forces continued to push them back. Lena's squadron pressed the attack further. One daring pilot, young and untested, dove into a cluster of enemy ships, disabling a warship's critical systems. Lena shouted, "Pull him back." But the pilot responded calmly, "It's worth it." In moments, the warship was crippled, spinning uselessly in orbit. Courage, sacrifice, and ingenuity defined every human soldier on Mars that day. By the end of the battle, the Imperium had suffered a major defeat. Their base on Mars was in ruins and their fleet scattered. The humans had not just defended a planet, they had shattered the illusion of Galaxian invincibility. Mars became a symbol, a warning. Humans would not bow, even when the odds were impossible. As the smoke cleared, Lena looked down at the Martian surface, battered but unbroken. "We fight for Earth," she said softly. "We fight for every life. We fight because we must survive, and we will." Across the galaxy, distant watchers, once loyal to the Imperium, began to whisper. Perhaps the humans were not weak after all. Perhaps the arrogance of the mighty would be their downfall. And in that moment, Mars was no longer just a battlefield. It was a testament to human courage, resilience, and the unyielding will to endure. Humanity was fighting not just for survival, but to remind the galaxy that underestimating them would be a fatal mistake. Earth was scarred. Cities that once glittered with life were now blackened craters. Oceans shimmered with fire. Forests smoldered, and millions had fallen. The humans mourned deeply, but grief did not break them. They stood taller, stronger, and more determined. Every life lost fueled their resolve. Humanity would survive, not because they were invincible, but because they refused to surrender. From the command centers underground, leaders coordinated rescue efforts, repairs, and counterattacks. Communication lines linked scientists, engineers, and soldiers. Every human knew their part. Civilians transported supplies, rebuilt defenses, and cared for the wounded. Every hand contributed, every heart fought. This was not just a battle of ships and weapons. It was a battle of spirit, a war of survival. Admiral Kale addressed the global network of human forces. "They think destruction will make us kneel," he said. "They are wrong. Fear will not bend us. Anger will not blind us. We endure because we must, and we endure because we can. This is Earth. We do not fall." His words spread through every corner of the planet, reaching soldiers on distant moons, pilots in orbit, and engineers repairing satellites under fire. Hope grew stronger than any weapon. The Imperium had assumed humans would break under pressure. They believed that after the devastation of the first strikes, Earth's people would surrender, begging for mercy. But they were wrong. Humans adapted. They learned. Each day brought new strategies, new defenses, and new courage. Small fighter squads harassed enemy supply lines. Satellites and orbital weapons worked in perfect harmony, striking with precision. Humans combined technology and instinct in ways the Imperium had never imagined. Even in the darkest hours, humanity found ways to inspire itself. In New York, survivors broadcasted a message to the world. We are injured but not broken. They think we fear them, but fear only sharpens us. Earth will not kneel. Humanity will endure, and we will fight until every last threat is gone. Across the globe, people stood taller, refusing despair, knowing that courage and determination were more powerful than any weapon. Elsewhere, the Imperium faltered. Their fleets, once confident, now faced unexpected losses. Their officers whispered of the humans' cunning. They learned too quickly, one admitted. They fight as one mind, as one will. How can a small planet resist the might of our empire? Zorath's arrogance began to waver. He had never encountered an enemy that refused to submit, an enemy that fought not for conquest, but simply to survive. Back on Earth, young pilots trained relentlessly, learning maneuvers that could outwit the Imperium. Engineers developed weapons that combined speed, stealth, and precision. Civilians volunteered in shelters, hospitals, and repair stations. Every human, no matter their age, became part of the defense. It was a collective strength, a shared determination, a force no machine could break. The galaxy watched quietly. Alien races that had once feared the Imperium began to take note of Earth. Rumors spread across star systems. A small, seemingly weak world was standing up to the mightiest empire in the galaxy. Humans were not perfect. They lost, they cried, they faltered, but they never surrendered. They fought because it was right, because survival demanded it, and because courage burned brighter than fear. At night, under the stars, Admiral Kale looked down at the planet he had sworn to protect. Fires still burned in some cities, but lights were returning elsewhere. Life continued. Humanity endured, and somewhere in that endurance he saw something more than survival. He saw pride, unity, and an unshakable spirit. The Imperium might have thought Earth was small, insignificant, and weak, but the humans had proven something the galaxy could not ignore. They were alive. They were unbroken. They were determined. Humanity's resolve was now stronger than any fleet, stronger than any weapon, and far more dangerous than the Imperium had ever imagined. And as the humans prepared for the battles yet to come, one truth became clear. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and that underestimation would cost them everything. The war had dragged on for weeks. The Imperium believed that their sheer power and numbers would eventually crush humanity, but every expectation had been shattered. Human tactics were unpredictable. Their courage was relentless, and their resolve unyielding. The galaxy began to whisper. Earth was no ordinary planet, and its people were no ordinary soldiers. In orbit near Jupiter, a massive battle raged. The Imperium's fleet stretched across the void like a shadow, weapons blazing, engines burning. Their flagship, the Eclipse of Stars, radiated authority and fear. Emperor Zorath believed victory was inevitable, yet even as he gave orders, small human ships darted through the chaos, striking at supply lines, sabotaging warp gates, and slipping past massive shields. Admiral Kale watched the battle unfold from the Resolute. His calm eyes followed every move. Focus on their engines, he said quietly, then force them into disarray. Precision wins where brute force fails. His officers worked like a single mind, anticipating every Imperium maneuver. Every strike, every retreat, every counterattack was calculated, yet executed with human unpredictability that machines could not match. Captain Lena Chen led a daring attack on one of the Imperium's heavily armed carriers. The vessel bristled with weapons, but humans had found a flaw. Using cloaked vessels and careful timing, they infiltrated the enemy formation. Lena's squadron wove through a storm of energy fire, risking everything to disable critical systems. Explosions lit the void, debris spinning into darkness, yet her team emerged victorious. Even as humans struck, the Imperium struggled to adapt. Zorath's officers shouted orders, but confusion spread. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and strategy faltered. They should be crushed by now. Zorath growled, his voice echoing through the bridge. How do they fight like this? His arrogance had been absolute, but the humans had proven that determination, ingenuity, and courage could bend even the strongest empires. On the surface of Earth, civilians watched the news feeds, hearts pounding. They had lost cities, friends, and family, yet they cheered for every small victory. Every Imperium ship destroyed was a reminder that humans were not just surviving, they were fighting back. Children drew pictures of heroes in space, parents shared stories of bravery, and even those far from the front lines felt a shared pride. Humanity's spirit had become a weapon more powerful than lasers or plasma beams. The Imperium attempted a desperate maneuver, concentrating fire to overwhelm the humans. But Kale anticipated it. Human ships split into smaller squadrons, striking from angles the enemy could not defend. Cloaked Frigg. Eights disabled communications while ground-based orbital cannons targeted weak points in enemy armor. One by one, the mighty vessels fell, exploding in showers of light and fire. Zorath's flagship, the Eclipse of Stars, was finally cornered. His pride and arrogance had blinded him. He had assumed that humans would surrender, that fear would bend them. But humans did not bow. Humans did not cower. They adapted, survived, and struck with precision and cunning. The galaxy had never seen an opponent like them. Lena Chen, leading the final strike against the flagship, felt the weight of history in her chest. "This is it," she whispered to her squadron. "Do it for Earth. Do it for everyone who ever believed we couldn't survive." Her squadron moved as one, a force of courage and precision. The Eclipse of Stars shook violently as critical systems were destroyed. Lights flickered, engines failed, and finally the mighty flagship began to drift, powerless in the void. Across the galaxy, observers, once loyal to the Imperium, watched in awe. A small, fragile planet, underestimated and dismissed, had turned the tide. Humanity had not just survived. They had proven that courage, intelligence, and the will to endure could overcome even the most powerful empire. For the first time, Zorath felt true fear. Not for himself, but for the empire he had assumed was invincible. The humans had taught him a lesson he would never forget. Arrogance was dangerous, and no matter how mighty, no force in the galaxy could crush a species that refused to yield. And in that moment, the balance of the war shifted. Humanity had found its turning point, not through raw power, but through unbreakable spirit, relentless strategy, and the fierce refusal to ever surrender. The Imperium had grown arrogant, believing its fleet, weapons, and experience could crush any world. But Earth had shown them otherwise. The humans had fought with courage, strategy, and an unbreakable spirit. And now the final confrontation loomed. The Imperium's remaining ships were scattered, their flagship crippled, and their once unshakable confidence shattered. Above Saturn's rings, the remnants of the Galaxian fleet prepared for what they hoped would be a last, desperate strike. Emperor Zorath paced the bridge of the Eclipse of Stars, his shining armor dimmed by frustration. "This cannot be," he growled. "We were supposed to win. We are supposed to be unstoppable. How can these humans resist?" Admiral Kale's voice came calmly across the comms to the fleet. "They underestimated us from the beginning," he said. "They thought fear would bend us. They were wrong. We fight not because we are strong alone, but because we fight together. Humanity does not surrender." The humans moved as one. Small squadrons darted between the massive Imperial warships, striking where shields were weakest. Cloaked vessels disabled navigation systems. Orbital cannons targeted engines and weapons simultaneously. The Imperium fleet, though vast, could not anticipate the cunning of a species that had learned to survive against impossible odds. Captain Lena Chen led a daring assault on Zorath's flagship. Her squadron dove through debris and fire, narrowly avoiding enemy beams. Explosions rocked the ship as humans planted charges and disabled systems from within. Lena felt a mixture of fear, resolve, and pride. "This is for Earth," she whispered to herself. "For every life lost, for every city destroyed, for every human who refused to give up." Zorath's officers shouted orders, but confusion reigned. His fleet faltered, collisions occurred, and weapons misfired. Fear, the very thing he had expected to exploit, now gripped the Imperium. They realized too late that arrogance had blinded them to the humans' ingenuity. Small ships had destroyed great vessels, and careful strategy had shattered what brute force could not. On Earth, civilians watched the feat of the battle, hearts racing. They saw their defenders risking everything, fighting not for glory but for survival. Families clutched one another, praying, hoping, and believing. Humanity had endured disaster, famine, and war before. They had learned that survival demanded courage, unity, and determination. And now that lesson was clear to the galaxy. The human attack intensified. The eclipse of stars shuddered violently as power systems failed and shields flickered. Lena and her team pressed forward, striking the final blow. Explosions tore through the flagship, sending pieces of its massive hull drifting into the void. Zorath's empire had fallen. The remaining Imperium vessels, leaderless and battered, fled in disarray. Admiral Kale watched silently as the Imperium retreated. "It is over," he said softly. But his words carried weight beyond victory. Humanity had not just defended a planet. They had shown the galaxy that courage, intelligence, and perseverance could defeat even the most powerful enemy. The Imperium's arrogance had been their downfall. Across the stars, other civilizations took notice. They had long feared the Imperium's might, but now they saw Earth's people in a new light. Humans were no longer a minor species. They were survivors, warriors, and strategists. They had endured the impossible, and in doing so, they had earned the respect of the galaxy. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kyle allowed himself a rare smile. "They thought they could break us with fire and fear," he said. "But they forgot one thing. Humanity never surrenders. We fight, we endure, we survive." And below on Earth, the people cheered. Cities burned no more. Fires were extinguished and hope returned. Humanity had faced the mightiest empire in the galaxy and prevailed. The Imperium had fallen not through luck or chance, but because humans refused to bow to fear, refused to bow to arrogance, and refused to bow to anyone. The stars themselves seemed to bear witness. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo forever. Underestimate humanity, and the cost could be absolute. The war was over. The Galaxian Imperium had been shattered, their mighty fleets destroyed, their arrogance undone. For the first time in history, the galaxy witnessed a small blue planet defy the most powerful empire it had ever known. Earth had survived. Humanity had triumphed, not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to surrender. On the surface, survivors emerged from shelters, blinking at the sunlight after days, weeks, and months of war. Cities were scarred, forests burned, oceans stained with fire and debris, but life endured. Children ran through streets filled with rubble, laughing despite everything. Families reunited, hugging tightly, tears streaming down faces that had known fear but refused to bow to it. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, looking down at Earth. His hands rested on the console, steady but worn from endless hours of command. "We are small," he said softly, "but we are not weak. Today, the galaxy has learned what we have always known. Courage, intelligence, and willpower can overcome even the most powerful enemy." Captain Lena Chen hovered near him, exhausted but proud. She had seen countless friends fall, watched ships explode, and survived dangers most would never imagine. Yet she felt hope stronger than fear. "We fought for every life," she said. "Every city, every family, every person who believed in Earth, we protected them. That is our victory." Across the planet, humans began to rebuild. Engineers repaired orbital defenses, cleared debris, and restored communications. Scientists worked to heal the planet, using knowledge and innovation to undo as much destruction as possible. Soldiers, though weary, kept watch, ensuring no threat could rise from the ruins. Humanity's strength lay not only in fighting, but in surviving and rebuilding. Far across the galaxy, other civilizations whispered of Earth. They had once feared the Imperium, but now they saw humanity in a new light. Humans were small, yes, but clever, resilient, and unstoppable when faced with impossible odds. Rumors spread quickly. The species that had defeated the Galaxian Imperium was unlike any other. The galaxy began to rethink its assumptions, realizing that underestimating Earth could be fatal. Even Emperor Zorath, though defeated, had learned a lesson he would never forget. Arrogance had blinded him to the humans' true power. They had fought not for conquest, not for glory, but simply because survival demanded it. Their courage, adaptability, and unity had destroyed an empire, leaving the galaxy forever changed. Admiral Kale addressed the fleet and the people of Earth. "They believed we would surrender," he said, voice echoing through communication channels. "They believed our small world would bow, but humans do not bow. We endure, we fight, we survive. Today we have shown the galaxy what that means." As night fell across the planet, stars twinkled brightly above. Humans looked up at the heavens once filled with fear, now filled with wonder and determination. They had seen the darkness of war, but they had also seen the light of courage, unity, and hope. Earth had survived. Humanity had triumphed. Children stared at the sky, dreaming of exploration, adventure, and discovery. They did not see themselves as small or weak. They saw themselves as inheritors of a proud, unyielding species. Humanity's story would echo through the galaxy, a warning and an inspiration. Underestimate humans and the cost will be devastating. Admiral Kale and Captain Chen stood together, watching the stars. "We are humanity," Kale said. "We are alive. We are unbroken, and the galaxy will never forget it." Somewhere deep in space, other races began to rethink alliances and strategies, inspired by what they had witnessed. The Imperium had fallen not because of luck, but because humans refused to bow, and Earth, scarred but unbroken, shone like a beacon of hope.